Good morning. Want to get California Today by email? Here's the sign up. It could hardly come as a surprise to anyone who travels around the state. The number of people who are homeless in California continues to rise at a steady clip. Every year, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development releases a point-in-time count of the homeless population. This year that number reached nearly 554,000, a 1% increase from last year, driven by the dramatic surge in West Coast cities. More than 1/4 of the total homeless population nationwide lives in California, roughly 114,000. The vast majority are unsheltered, a more bureaucratic term to describe the thousands living on the streets, under freeways, and tucked into grassy fields and parks in cities all around the state. It's certainly a bigger increase than we would have expected, said Ben Metcalf, the director of the state's Department of Housing and Community Development. There's a tale of different countries here. We're seeing a real significant increase and much of the rest of the country is not. We're all doing the same things, but here the rent is too damn high. We've seen an incredible increase in the cost of housing. About 1.6 million households are considered to be living in worse scenarios, Mr. Metcalf said, living with low wages and spending more than half of their income on housing. That number has ballooned continuously through much of the last decade, while wages have remained flat. There is grim evidence at county morgues, too, because of a significant hepatitis A outbreak and because the homeless population is aging. Several cities have seen a dramatic rise in the number of people who die homeless. In Santa Clara County, the number of homeless deaths have more than doubled since 2011, with 132 people dying on the street last year. Undoubtedly, Los Angeles County is the epicenter of the homeless crisis, up to more than 55,000, an increase of more than 13,000 compared with last year. 80% of homeless people in Los Angeles live on the street or in public parks. Last year, voters approved a ballot measure that expects to raise about $4.7 billion in the next decade for affordable housing and homeless services. Mr. Metcalf said the numbers have not been this dire since at least 2007. Dozens of city and county governments have declared homelessness an emergency in the last 2 years, something Gov. Jerry Brown has refused to do on a statewide level. I'm not sure what it would do for us that we can't do already, Mr. Metcalf said. Please note, we regularly highlight articles on news sites that have limited access for non-subscribers. A train crash in Southern California nearly a decade ago was supposed to lead to increased safety measures through technology. That hasn't happened. The New York Times: tens of thousands of California children are poised to lose the health care plan they and their families have relied on for years. Cal matters: should the Republican tax plan Congress passed this week prompt you to pay your property taxes early? The Los Angeles Times: are job advertisements targeted at younger users on Facebook an example of age discrimination? Several experts say the practice is illegal. The New York Times: the Supreme Court told federal appeals courts in California that they moved too quickly to order the Trump administration to release documents about ending DACA, the program that protects about 800,000 undocumented immigrants from deportation. The New York Times: everyone wants to hug us. And I love it. How the Santa Rosa couple who spent 6 hours in a pool while the wildfire ripped around them has begun to recover. The Los Angeles Times: can Anita Hill fix Hollywood's harassment problem? The New York Times: calling his music Nuevo Mariachi, a third-generation Mexican-American musician from the Central Valley is trying to reinvigorate the traditional music of Mexico. Public Radio International: infinity mirrors. Museum of Ice Cream. Carrie James Marshall. RINSTagram posts a boon or a benefit for modern art. Los Angeles Magazine. Peter Burnett was the first governor of the state of California, ascending to the post on December 20, 1849. But his ignominious legacy is hardly known today. Mr. Burnett came from Missouri via Oregon, settling near Sacramento amid the gold rush. Just as he had done in Oregon, Mr. Burnett pushed to exclude blacks from the state. While he seemed to couch his argument in anti-slavery terms, he was merely disguising his equal opportunity racism, said William Devereux, a historian and the director of the Huntington U.S.C. Institute on California and the West. He was not particularly unusual at all at the time, Mr. Devereux said. That's when the really vicious attacks on Native Americans started coming and gave way to genocidal violence. He was early opponent of the Chinese, which leads to the Exclusion Act. He really shows you can be anti-slavery and a racist to the core without any difficulty whatsoever. Though he is included in fourth-grade state history, Mr. Burnett's name has largely been erased from the public sphere. His name was on a San Francisco preschool as well as an elementary school in Long Beach, but was recently taken down and replaced at both schools after reports of his views and statements resurfaced. He talked in this undeniably ugly way about people, so we should talk about how we've honored him, Mr. Devereux said. These are not issues that are reserved for other parts of the United States without resonance in California. California Today goes live at 6 a.m. Pacific Time weekdays. Tell us what you want to see. See today at NewYorkTimes.com. California Today is edited by Julie Bloom, who grew up in Los Angeles and graduated from UC Berkeley.